the most expensive thing in the world is regret. So recognize that someday you regret stuff, and make it your mission when you're young to regret as little as possible.
All right, here we go. This is the Living Numbers Podcast, and I am your host, Tony Rambles. This is the place where everyone's interesting if you ask the right questions. Now, before we start, you all know we have our 4 appeals, 20 seconds, ready, set, time me. Number 1, rate, review, share wherever you listen to podcasts. Number 2, follow me on IG and TikTok at the Living Numbers Podcast. Number 3, support the vision by purchasing merch at the Living Numbers Pod Shop on Etsy. And number 4, subscribe for the behind the scenes content. Me and Brian just had a great conversation about why and goals and other stuff. And we'll probably have a great conversation afterwards. But you got to subscribe for that on Apple or Spotify. Definitely over 20 seconds there, but I digress. You all know, whenever we have somebody on for the first time, we have to give them an elaborate introduction. Now, Brian has not heard this introduction, has not read it, has not seen it. So, hopefully he's pleasantly surprised, and we'll see how much of this stuff I got wrong.
Okay.
Hailing from possibly Claremont, California. I know that's where he is now.
Yeah.
He earned his bachelor's in economics from UC San Diego. He's the founder of private consulting firm Defiant Solutions LLC, which I love the name. We will talk about that. Before that, he worked as senior vice president of contingent workforce strategies with SIA, also known as staffing industry analyst. And he's been featured in various industry publications like Forbes, Fortune, BuzzFeed for reshaping the staffing industry. I'm sure this is all stuff he's heard before. However, he has self-proclaimed himself as a night owl who works late and wakes up early, getting about 4 or 5 hours of sleep. I don't know how you do it. He believes in results over resumes. I read that. I thought that was amazing because I always feel like put me in front of him, I'll win him over.
Yeah.
Thought leader, trailblazer, and semi-stand-up comedian. I present the Bryan Pena. Say hello to the people.
Hello, everyone. Thank you for having me, Tony. It's exciting to be here. And I'm originally from Northern California, so I'm a little town just north of San Francisco called Novato, California. So that's where I'm from. Otherwise, got a lot of that right.
Appreciate it. Sometimes you can find the hometowns, sometimes you can't. So I just go somewhere in this area, right?
Yeah.
So, okay, I'm gonna start us off with our first number, and it's one of my favorite movies. It reminds me of watching movies with my dad and my brothers and sisters during the holidays. So this movie came out in 1983, and it's called Trading Places.
Yes.
Eddie Murphy.
Of course.
Great movie. Great movie. And so when I read the word commodities, because that's, what you worked, some area that you worked in, I'm going to be honest with you, Brian, I was reading a lot of this stuff. I'm like, okay, I'm not really well-versed in what he did, but he's going to be the expert for us.
Yeah,
And
sure.
one thing, and I'm getting off track, I'm Tony Rambles, this is kind of what I do. When I looked at your profile picture and you had this smile that was so inviting, I was like, okay, I think we're going to be okay. Because a lot of people, they've got these headshots, they're stern and everything, and you got this great smile. So I'm like, okay, maybe this guy knows how to have a good time. Okay, back to our number.
I'd like to think I do.
So,
absolutely.
when I heard that word commodity, it made me think of the storyline in the movie where the commodity was frozen orange juice, and they were trying to corner the market, and
That's
then
right.
of course
They
everything
cornered the market on frozen concentrated form of frozen orange juice.
Yes.
They got the farm report from the guy who they then put in the monkey suit, and they put him on the train. Absolutely. You're not going to out-movie me, Tony, I promise.
There are two links here, and you can kind of go either way. You got commodities, which is what you worked in, and we'll talk about that. But there's also the comedy part where you have a joy for stand-up comedy, and I thought that was I don't not odd. That's not the word, but I always like to know the person behind the work.
Of
Because
course.
we all have our jobs, what we do, what we specialize in, the book that we wrote, the class we want to advertise. But here on the Living Numbers podcast, I want to know the person behind it. So, have you always been a free thinker in this way? Like when you were coming up as a kid, were you this kind of color outside the lines kind of person? Because when I think about the stuff that you've done, that's
Yeah, I mean,
where that
that's
that drew me there.
yes, literally and figuratively. I think when I was young, I had incredibly bad handwriting, like really, really bad. And my mom
Okay.
always used to tell this story about how when I was in first grade, the teacher had my dad and her and called them in and said, I'm sorry, Mr. and Mrs. Pena. This was in the 70s or whatever, 80s, 70s. Mr. and Mrs. Pena, we think that your son may be mentally handicapped.
Uh-oh.
And that was back with that was common. They use other phraseology for that, but that was generally the gist of it, that I was developmentally challenged and that I was going to need special school. And the reason why was because I could not color in the lines. I
Mm.
literally, my handwriting was so bad, I couldn't color between the lines. So, like any parents would, they freaked out. They took me all the universities. They found that I was fine, and my doctor said, "Let's just teach him how to type." And so that was
Hmm.
so. My whole life, I've never really been the type of guy to color in the lines. So that's a really good metaphor. Um, but I've always really strived to one figure out the problem that other people can't solve. When I was when I was
Mm.
younger, I used to wrestle. I liked that sport because I felt it was all on you. It wasn't a team sport where someone could lose the game for me. It wasn't about um, when I lost, it was on me, and when I won, it was on me. And so I
Mm.
always appreciated that challenge, and wrestling in and of itself is a very creative sport. When I went to college, I thought I wanted to be a doctor, so I studied biophysics. And I realized that I was not a student who could do that. So I eventually migrated over to economics, but I also studied theater. And so I studied economics and
Mm.
theater at UC San Diego, and I got all the credits possible except for one to get a double degree in theater and economics. So I say that I studied both theater and economics offhand. So I moved to LA, and well, actually, through a combination of circumstances, a friend of mine got me a job with this company in Northern California, who the name escapes me. But the day before I was supposed to start, I had like a midlife crisis in my early 20s, and I said I'm just not ready to settle down. And so I moved down to LA in 1994 to pursue a career as an actor. So I was a professional actor for 6 years. I did some commercials and TV. I had an IMDb page, and every once in a while I'll still get a small residual check from the work I did back then. But
Mm.
I did that for a while, and then my then wife was pregnant with our second child, and uh, I broke my back, and
Dang.
so I couldn't work, and so we were incredibly poor. And then I saw an ad on TV for a game show, and there's a reason why I tell the story.
I like
I
it.
saw an ad on TV for a game show at the time. It was called Greed. It was on Fox, and I, I I was recovering from surgery, from having spinal fusion surgery. I had like my stitches in my stomach and drains everywhere, and I saw an ad on TV, and I said, "Oh, I'm going to audition for that show because what the heck?" Back then, they would audition for game shows, and you could go audition for them. So I went and auditioned. I got on the show, but anyway, I go on the show, and I'm immediately eliminated within the first 35 seconds. And I had to make up a job because I couldn't say unemployed actor. So I said public relations consultant or whatever. But anyway, watching the show that night that it aired on Fox was an executive who was a producer on a low budget movie I had done several years prior. He
Hmm.
saw me on TV. He had a job opening. He said, "Let's see. I think Brian may be a good fit." And then that's how I got into my first job at Universal Studios as a commodities manager. So
Mm-hmm.
I love to tell that story specifically to young people because you never know where opera is going to come from. You never know what that relationship is going to yield. And to me, it's a great story about how you always do your best wherever you are because you don't know what's going to happen, what decision, what connection is going to yield what. If I was a jerk on the set, or if I was late, or if I was rude here, everything that I've gotten in the last 20 plus years wouldn't have happened most likely. And
Wow.
so to me, that is a great sort of way of which I've approached all of the stuff that I do in my career is about, really focusing on connecting, looking at things in a different way. I feel the ability to communicate, the ability to express myself, and to see opportunities where other people don't see them has been, I use that word a lot, a superpower of mine. And so when we talk about being a trailblazer, I don't know if I would say that I'm a trailblazer or anything like that. I think that I just like to see things differently. And I like
Hmm.
to find solutions to problems that other people shy away from. I think that's a better way to say it.
Have you ever gotten into a situation where, because clearly your mind works a little bit differently. So, have you gotten to a situation where you're thinking about a solution to a problem in a certain way, and people are like, just go do the job that we hired you for? Like, we don't really want all of this extra stuff, because sometimes uh, we have solutions and we have input, but that's not really our place or our job, so we kind of get put in this box. So, has it ever kind of gotten you in a little bit of hot water?
Um, I think that it depends on which content and how we use it. The thing that a lot of people realize is that, or don't realize, is that the thing that the universe rewards is action and execution. The best ideas in the world are meaningless if you can't execute and you can't get it. So I've always understood that the real thing that separates success from failure is the ability to make things happen or create things and execute on things. So I've never really pursued anything that I would say was so it's so risky as opposed to
Mm,
focusing on the task at hand. I used to call it, when I was running a procurement group, I used to call it the 80% solution, right? So many people waste so much time trying to solve 100% of a given problem as opposed to solving as many problems as you can, as fast as you can, and leaving room to improvise the remaining 80%. And so
mm,
I've always been able to have the benefit of being successful by recognizing that, um, understanding the guardrails of execution and driving change. And sometimes those changes can be really significant in whatever realm, as long as you focus it within those guardrails. So, have I gotten in trouble before? I absolutely have. Right, negotiating contracts and too aggressive with certain pricing strategies, or maybe trusting a person too much. I'm not saying that in any way, but I can't say that I've ever been in a situation where uh, you know they call you in the office and say, "Gosh dang it, Pena, that's not how we do things here." Because I've always been
mm,
able to focus on every job, no matter what it is, a sales job. I don't care who you are, you're a salesman. And I don't care if you're a receptionist or you're working on a factory line, you have to sell yourself to the people. And so I've always focused every task as
mm.
some execution of doing that. And it's never failed me. I don't know. It makes now when you're saying that, it's making me feel like I don't take risks because I feel like I do. But I think I think it just made me think about. I think in those terms, it's much more about um, focusing on outcomes and not making it about yourself. I guess. What do I
So
feel
when I listen to you, it sounds like more often than not, people trust your judgment in what you do because you've built the connection.
Yes.
Like so, They'll
100%.
go, okay, shoot, if Brian says we should do this, if even if we're not going to 100% go with that, we have to at least consider it because of the source that it came from. And so
Yes. Yeah. I
we
mean,
were talking about beforehand that kind of stuff.
yes. And I also don't like to give up. I mean, I'm really, when I know something is the right thing to do, I have a crazy belief that it's going to get done.
Mm,
Right. I don't necessarily worry about, I don't worry about my ability, or I don't worry about it not happening. I just know it's only a matter of time. Maybe it's not
mm,
now, maybe it's not next week. But I know for a fact that when I set my mind to something, it's going to happen.
mm. When you talked about like the 80 solution rule, 80%,
Hmm.
the first thing that popped into my head, and a couple of examples came to me, is when you have these professional sports leagues negotiating CBAs, collective bargaining agreements,
Yeah.
where one side wants all of this stuff, the other side wants all of this stuff. Nobody gets everything they want,
Yeah.
but you try to find the most effective way for everybody to get the best things that they need, in the
Yeah.
situation. It also reminded me of coaching. So your team is your team oftentimes, and if you don't have a very good team, and you may look around and you go, "Well, there aren't any good solutions here. There are
Yeah.
n- there are none." But we got to keep playing games. So you just try to figure out what's going to hurt us the least, and then
Yeah.
how can we maximize the places that were good. So it sounds like those are some things that you did, kind of leveraging that spot and being able to go to universals. So what is a commodities manager and how does
Okay.
that work?
Everyone always gets caught up on that. I did an interview for NPR and they tried to hang me up on this. A commodity manager is just in organizations, large
Mhm.
enterprises have very complicated processes for buying, as you would imagine. And they're organized in purchasing, they used to be called purchasing, but procurement or strategic sourcing departments. And everybody within those departments is supposed to be assigned a certain category of what's called spend. So that spend category is called a commodities manager. So you manage the commodities on behalf of the company. Doesn't mean I'm buying frozen orange juice like in trading places. That's there. But I started out, my category when I first started was manufacturing inputs. So I negotiated the cardboard contracts for the VHS tapes. I mean, I'm dating myself there.
Oh,
I negotiated those. So cardboard, the VHS tapes, film developing, because back then they used to, they still develop film, but we were helping negotiate those particular deals. And then there's different types of commodities. There's a commodity manager for professional services. Now they're changed to category managers. Now that's the expression now, category managers, but commodity managers is also a name for it. Travel, IT, and software is a commodity. Professional
mhm,
services is a commodity. That's the largest commodity in most organizations. Things, those sorts of things, office supplies. So commodity management is just the way that you express and identify the name of the person who has a domain expertise around sourcing certain types and negotiating certain types of contracts on behalf of a company. That's all it means. It sounds I don't know,
complicated.
it sounds complicated, but it really isn't. It sounds complicated, it really isn't.
Hey man, you're in charge of buying the office supplies. Make sure we don't run out of cups.
That's exactly it. That's exactly it. I did buy office supplies for a number of years. It was just like that. Negotiating with Staples and Office Depot and FedEx and UPS and DHL and all those other sorts of things. And it's fascinating to me because it's a combination of sales and economics and contract law and
Mm.
understanding different and negotiating contracts and all that other stuff. I used to love to write my own contracts. Spent hours and
How,
hours with the
how
different.
hard is it to write a contract?
Well, I mean, it's if you're not an attorney, sometimes you have to learn certain terms. But
Hmm.
what I loved about writing contracts was the art of using words to be specific and being able to
Mm,
articulate the intent and the example of it. Because when you get into the root of an agreement, I'm going to get really nerdy here. You start to get into really art words about shall or may or will, or the differentiation of what's called performance standards, for example. If I'm negotiating a contract and they say we will use commercially reasonable efforts, that's the lowest standard of effort in a contract, as opposed to must and best possible, which means you're holding yourself to an impossible standard to execute. So the nuances in the language there is just fascinating to me. And even to this day, there are contracts that I've negotiated that I will pull out and just read again because I was just so in love with the language of what we had put together. Yeah, there's stuff like that.
That
That's,
sounds.
I don't think I've ever told anybody that piece, Tony.
Well, like, okay, so this is how my brain works, and I'm like kind of connecting these dots here because uh, loving that kind of language and how the words work, kind of, I feel like maybe connects back to theater and
Oh yeah.
acting, and kind of putting all this stuff. Yeah, yeah. So, did you ever have this thought, like, okay, I'm at Universal, kind of, so maybe I could poke around and see, if I'd be able to get back to acting somehow. Did you ever think about that?
Every
Once
once
you
in a, I
got
mean,
older
every
and stuff.
once in a while, I have friends who are still in their recognizable faces
Mm,
who are acting. I still every once in a while think about that. I think when I started Universal, I was there for it was an amazing kind of commitment they made to me, and I made a commitment back to them and myself and my family that
mm,
I was done with the acting thing. And I
mm,
had started there, and I remember this is my memory. Now I couldn't. I'm going to mess up some names. I'm not even going to try and give names, but I remember I was there for maybe 3 weeks, or maybe 3 or 4 months, I think. I got a phone call from the casting director at Friends, and she called me directly and said, "Hey, Brian, we want you to come
mm.
straight to the producers for which means I didn't even have to audition. I went straight to meet with the producers for to be on Friends. It was a 3 episode role, and I was going to play Jennifer Aniston's um, boyfriend, and there was a kissing scene involved. And
Woo.
and so like anybody anywhere would go, oh my god, this was the late '90s. Friends was at an apex of popularity. And I remember the casting director, and I said, I took a beat, and I said, I'm so sorry, I have to say no. And she said, you said, do you understand this is Friends, and you don't have to, you're going right in. And there was a whole through line on it. And I said no. And she says, okay, well, whatever. And then anyway, I talked to my manager 2 weeks afterwards or 3 weeks afterwards. I said, just so you know, I want to tell you how committed I am to this job and the opportunity you gave me.
Mm.
And and then he said, you're an idiot. He said, if you would have come to me, I would have given you the time off. That was the stupidest decision you've ever made. And and those opportunities never came back again. I had that acting sort of desire scratched when I do public speaking and I do things like this. It kind of fulfills
Mm.
that role. And I feel like that sort of creativity is expressed in a lot of different ways. And so a lot of people pursue an acting career for the wrong reasons. Uh, Maybe they want to impress somebody, or they want to prove to their parents, or they want to show the kids in high school who did X, Y, or Z, or whatever. Um, and other times, it's just an expression of a need to or a desire to create and to contribute something to the world. And so I've been really fortunate to feel I've been able to do that in other ways and express that creativity in other ways. That being said, if I were to get a phone call tomorrow to go and do a movie, maybe I would. Right? Maybe I would.
Ooh.
The job of acting is a very difficult one, and the job of acting is auditioning. So
Mm.
the acting itself is not the job. The job is auditioning, and auditioning is a lot of work, a lot of driving, and a lot of rejection. And so a lot of people aren't ready for that. So I don't miss it
Yeah.
necessarily. Sometimes I do, but I don't usually. That's a long answer to the short question.
No, I love it. I love long answers. I always, and I think maybe either this summer, because I'm going back to get my master's, so I don't know what I'm gonna be able to do this summer. But I've always wanted to act. And what you said about the being able to creatively express, right? And then I also think about the aspect of the teamwork aspect, right? You're working with all these other people to create this one thing,
Yeah.
that will last forever and hopefully is good.
Yeah.
But that's always been something that's been very interesting to me. Now, I didn't study theater. I wasn't even in theater in high school. But I don't know why. But as I got older, like maybe because we watched a lot of movies, I
Yeah.
don't know. But like this creative expression thing comes out a lot more the older I get because we were just like all sports. It was football, basketball, baseball, so there wasn't necessarily like room for other things in my family. Not saying that we would have been shunned or anything, but like my dad was into sports, so he got us into sports. My dad was into music, so we listened to a lot of music,
Yeah.
so my son will be able to have an opportunity to like the things that I like.
Yeah.
So just whenever I have somebody on that talks about like, oh, acting, and I didn't even see this anywhere, like in your bios, or I would have loved to have found that. Man, that would have been great research. Um, but just you saying that, it just takes me down a whole nother rabbit hole. Now I just want to talk about acting. So
Sorry about that.
we have okay. What was your favorite part then? Or not that. What was the part where you auditioned for something? And you was like, I think I did pretty good on it. I feel like I'm actually an actor, an
I
actor
I
now.
I I I don't remember. I mean, I don't think I had any roles that. I mean, I did a couple of sitcoms, and I did a role on Chicago Hope, um, and that was the one that paid the best was I did this thing on True Hollywood Stories. I played Andrew Cunanan, and it was really not. It was really not anything. I don't think I ever had the opportunity to look at all the roles I did and all the plays I did and say that
Mm,
I really maybe I did something that I was my best. The things that I'm
mm,
more proud of are things that happened later. A keynote speech where I felt I especially connected with the audience. That was much more
okay,
exciting.
yeah.
Or a particular class that I taught that I felt like I really made a difference. Um,
Hmm.
I've never had the pleasure of any of the acting work I've done be anything other than um, playing the bills. The things that you've done in class. I mean, I did fine as an actor. I didn't wait tables. I did just that. I did a number of commercials and stuff. So I'm not poo-pooing the fact that I was that I didn't work
Hmm.
professionally, but I can't look to anything that I did other than maybe one or two small movies that I really felt I was able to really bring some emotion and reality to it. Um,
Mm.
but I think I'm more proud of the things that I've done since then, frankly.
Okay, so talk about one of those things where you feel like you nailed it, whether it was a keynote
Well,
or one of those classes.
so was one of when I it was yeah, I was doing a keynote speech back when I was at um, SIA, staffing industry analyst, and we would it was a lot of the speeches that the organization had done were very much dry and about the research that we produced. We were an industry research trade group, and we would do these conferences all over the world. And
Mm,
when I took over the role of the division or the group, um, I made the decision to really take a risk, and God bless the organization for letting me, write a speech that I felt was much more about like a call to arms, like a real manifesto about how we as professionals need to recognize that the world of work is changing, and we're going to be able to be the people who are redefining how work is done for generations
mm,
to come. And we're going to be able to look at, sit back in a rocking chair and think about the massive change in which people are able to feed their families and know that on some small level we contributed to moving that needle. And it was
okay, yes.
a speech about basically an expression of that. And I had a speech in there that was taped by John F. Kennedy, where he talks about how we're going to go to the moon. There's a very iconic speech where he talks about we will go to the moon, we're going to go. We shall go to the moon and do those other things, not because they are easy, but because they are hard. And that was going to be the huge manifesto, and I was going to do a whole thing. And then the tape broke in front of 1,000 people. And
technology.
And I was forced to be able to just kind of go, okay, I have 6 minutes to fill, whatever.
Mm-hmm.
And I filled it. I just connected with the people there, and I can't remember what I said, but I had people come after me and say that it affected them. And so those are the things that I'm more proud of than any of the stuff I did when I was acting. What I remember when I was acting are the auditions that I blew, and that's like every single actor on the planet. They're going to know the ones where they just basically, pardon the phrase, that you can bleep that out later, I'm sure. But I think those are the things where you go, oh my God, and you're driving home, and then you realize, oh my God, I know what the casting director wanted, and you wish you could go back and do it over again. There's more than a couple of those that I remember, for sure. But like I said, I think the valuable skills that you learn in that is much more about connecting with people and being able to deal with things as they come. And improv is, to me, the most valuable commercial skill that you can have, is the ability to respond authentically to what's happening around you. So I often recommend people in their careers take that sort of training. Again, a long answer to a short question.
Hey, we welcome long answers here on the Living Numbers podcast. Long it out. We love the long. When people say long story short, no, make the long story long. We like the long ones.
I get it.
Okay, so I heard that you like to do stand-up.
Sure, I love stand-up comedy. Yes. Do I like to do it?
So you do.
We're trying to figure that out. Actually, ironically, I have a show. I should have a show tomorrow, or no, Saturday. I did a stand-up comedy class 4 years ago. I probably see at least 2 or 3 comedy shows a week. Wow. My fiance is thankfully equally excited about comedy as I am. And there's this class I'm taking here in LA stand-ups with a guy by the name of Joe Falzerano and Vargas Mason. And it's a 6-week class, and the final is getting up on stage at the Hollywood Improv and doing a set. And so that happens to be this Saturday. So I had a call from my coach earlier today where he was, we're going over punchlines and comedy rules, and it's harder than you think, but it's a lot of fun when it goes well. So we'll find out. Ask me on Sunday how I feel about it, and I'll let you know.
I'll set a reminder. I will shoot you an email.
Okay.
How did it go? Seriously, I will.
I'll take it. Yeah, but the thing I love about it is, one, I think that comedy is, and the ability to make people laugh. You can basically say anything. People are more open to be confronted with new ideas if you can make them laugh while you're doing it than anything else. Mm-hmm. Nothing is really taboo or off limits if it's done the right manner. Like, I'm not a big believer in people who swear a lot or talk about, scatological issues or whatever. But you can have some pretty interesting conversations about heady topics if they're expressed in a comedic way. Yeah, and who doesn't like to laugh? So yeah, I love stand-up.
We all do. I don't remember who I was listening to, but they said you can be mean if it's funny enough. I was like, okay.
Yeah. If it works,
we almost found it to be true.
You can say difficult things for sure. You can be unpopular for sure. You could be something else entirely. You can experiment with your voice. You're a high school communications teacher. The thing about communications is that you have to teach people to use your whole instrument, right? Communications is not just the words on the page. It's the way you say it. It's not just the way you say it. It's the way you use your hands when you say it. It's not just your hands. It's what are you doing with the rest of your body when you're talking, and how do you use your face, and all these things are communication. And comedy is an ability to be able to express all of those things, and use a funny voice. Where else am I going to be able to do that in a comic way, or where am I going to be able to pantomime, filling a bathtub or whatever. That's super fun. And when you see great comedians, they're using everything from their voice to their intonation, to their eyes, to the stage, to props on the table. Everything is a tool. And it's fascinating
You have a favorite?
when you realize that you can be unleashed for the first time ever. It's attractive, but at the same time, don't get me wrong. I'll be really disappointed if I don't get at least one laugh. So we'll see. We'll see.
Do you have a favorite comedian?
It's the best communication training you can have. The ability to understand what humor is and how people laugh. Set up premise, set up punchline, and that's how. And if you start to see that everywhere in communications when you break down comedy, you see the basic ideas are around you everywhere. It's a great social experience and probably the best marketing training you're ever going to have.
Do you have a favorite comedian?
I like all of them. I think Dave Chappelle is without a doubt the greatest comedian that's ever walked the face of the planet. But it depends. Yeah. I like them all for different reasons. We were just watching Orny Adams. He's a funny comedian. Joe Rogan's great. I've seen him a number of times. Jeff Garvin. Those are just a couple. Mark Maron. Like I said, I got a whole bunch of great comedians who I love.
You got a list.
I got a long list. Long list of people I'll go pay to see.
I'm enthralled. But I think I would be doing you a disjustice. An injustice? An injustice. There we go. An injustice if we didn't talk about the work that you were doing at Defiant and how you got there, and also the work that you did with SIA.
Mm-hmm.
So that's going to bring us to our next number, which is it's not a funny story, but it's a story. So
our
next number is 12134 Gulf Freeway, which is an address here in Houston. And after I left oil and gas, I was kind of in between jobs. Like I didn't have anything. And so we would go to this staffing place called Labor Ready.
Yep.
And they will put you on a job for a day. You know, you might make $40, anywhere from I'd say from $40 to about $80 in a day. And I remember one day they sent me to a dump. I went to go work at Waste Management, at a literal dump where they got the trucks and they're dropping off all the trash. It smelled terrible. I said, I'm not coming back here tomorrow. I'm not doing it. This is it. This is it. I have to go find something else to do. So you've done a lot of different stuff in staffing. And so I am going to let you take it from here. And I'm looking at you crafted this certified contingent workforce professional program that's kind of reshaped, how they did staffing and all the different training and that kind of stuff. So I want you to tell people what that is in I guess layman's terms.
Sure. Okay. So I started a staffing industry analyst is an industry research trade. I don't want to say trade group, but they're a research firm dedicated towards, in the beginning, the staffing industry, but it's eventually evolved into other forms of non-traditional work arrangements. If you think about companies, organizations, enterprises, governments, they use a combination of human resources to be able to get stuff done. We always think about, or historically, people always think about full-time hires is the only way for people or companies to be able to leverage people. But the truth is, there's a whole range in which people are, companies use people to be able to solve a business problem or come to a business outcome. So you could work for a temporary agency, like you work for Labor Ready. You could work for a consulting firm. You could be an intern. You could work for an outsourced solution. You could be an independent contractor, working in business for yourself. And each of those ways of working are being taken advantage of by every single company on the planet. Each of those ways of working come with their own levels of pluses and minuses and complexities about how you manage that. And so what I did at SIA was work with enterprises, organizations, and government entities on identifying best practices and how companies can leverage human resources in all of those forms. And so in the past, professional services was a commodity. It's considered a commodity. And I saw that there was a need for professionalization of how companies manage non-employee workers. And there was value in creating certifications to be able to allow people to kind of have a badge of knowledge. These are the things that you need to know to be able to be a competent practitioner in a given space. And so we created the ccbp, Certified Contingent Workforce Practitioner certification, along with an industry trade group, a collection of both staffing providers and major enterprises to come up with that set of standards. I remember, you brought up that question earlier about challenging the status quo. I will tell you without a doubt that was a challenge. There were people within my own company who were actively trying to sabotage it up until the day that we released it. So yes, it was that. It's funny if I go back. That was the time where we had the kind of the guy, damn it, Penn, you're going to be the end of us all, sort of thing. But no, I know it was the right thing to do. And it's proven ourselves right. One of the things that I'm incredibly proud of is I go on LinkedIn and I type in ccbp, and I see the thousands of people who've got the certification. I see people who are announcing, "Oh my gosh, I just passed the test," and to know that I had some way, that was an idea in a PowerPoint that I made to the management team, and almost 12 years ago, is something I'm incredibly proud of. So the ccbp was dedicated to be able to do that. Now it's got different forms. It's been taught to several thousand people on every continent, and it's still something I'm incredibly proud of, as well as the team to this day. And so at SIA, I was at SIA for a while, and I did that, and then I left SIA to go work for a company called Amio Partners, where I was the chief of market research for 2 years, and then I left there in 2021 and started Defiant Solutions. And what we do is actually two lines. Defiant Solutions works with startups, enterprises, staffing firms, talent platforms, marketplaces, and technology players all around the future of work. We act as an extension of their executive team to support whatever corporate initiatives or corporate challenges they're having, whether it's go-to-market, how do you sell to major enterprises, to identifying opportunities for their product to sell, strategic partnerships, as well as market and messaging. So we're a full-service sort of firm dedicated to a whole host of strategic resourcing for all these other companies. Companies come to us when they want to develop strategies from the ground up. How do I sell to enterprise X, or how do I build a product that is enterprise ready? Because selling to large companies is a very different animal than a lot of companies are used to. And so we help them develop those solutions to be able to be enterprise grade, as it were. Does that make sense? Did I answer that correctly? Okay.
Yeah, you're helping the little guys be able to pitch to the big guys.
That's exactly it. I think that's the best way to say. I'm going to steal that line. You got the little guys.
It's all yours.
Big guys. Yeah, that's good. That's good.
Because it's funny, right? Because when you said that, or as I'm thinking about it in my mind, when I was creating my podcast and I was putting it together, and really every step of the way, I'm always thinking like, I don't ever want people to look at the show and feel like, oh yeah, that's done in his garage or in his closet. They don't really have any standard, or I want the production value to be, I can't get on par with these people who have thousands and hundreds of thousands of dollars be on their budget, just to get the show made. But I want to be close.
Yeah.
I want to be
Well,
close.
I
I
tell
want
you,
it to feel right.
yeah, man, I totally agree with that, and I think that, and I talk about this all the time. There's some big super trends that I always talk about. One of the super trends that I talk about is that now more than ever, it is as easy as it ever has been in our history for people to be able to monetize their experience for themselves. And you could work for Uber. You could participate in Upwork or Fiverr, or be able to any of these talent marketplaces that you have. And at the same time, those tools are available to us. And so the thing that I am fascinated with is the ability for individuals to punch above their weight, leveraging all the tools and technologies that are out there. And that, to me, is the most exciting thing, in trying to figure out what that is how that, to me, I look at what you're doing with your podcast and what we're trying to do at Defiant. And there's no reason we can't compete with any company of any size, because at my fingertips, I have the entire collective knowledge of humanity at my hands. The only thing that is limiting is my ability to imagine what it is I want to do. Because I think that with the right intention and creativity, you can compete with anyone. And that goes back to what we talked about before. And maybe that's part of that's something that I'm going to be, permanently naive about. But I do believe there is no problem that you cannot solve if you just have the right people involved and you're creatively engaged. And so when you think about how technology allows people to be able to use AI to write a report or to leverage the internet or to leverage these other resources to be able to hire graphic designers or podcast producers anywhere in the world, the only limitation is your imagination. And that's something I deeply believe is that the only limitation that prevents you from doing it is that you just haven't thought of it yet. And I spent a lot of time around really successful people. And I've always been fascinated. You asked a question earlier on about the why. I've always been fascinated with why are these guys so successful? Because I can tell you what, they are no smarter than you and I. I've talked to billionaires, I've talked to people who have run major organizations, and they are no smarter than you or I. The only difference is that one, they got a lot of luck, and two, they just believe it's possible. And that's a thing that I hope you can transfer to your kids is that belief that the only limitation is your imagination. And that's true. I don't care what color you are, I don't care where you come from. The only limiting thing is going to be that. And maybe that's the unpopular opinion that we referenced earlier. But I think that I definitely believe that that now is the best time ever to be able to manifest your dream, because there's never been more tools available to do it and more people you can enroll to do it with you.
What do you think are some of the issues, like as people are doing that? Because hustle culture is something that is prevalent now, where people are like, "Well, I got to make more money, so I got to do different jobs. I got to look up these ideas here. I got to get into this. I got to get into that." What are some things that most people don't think of? Looking at it from your side and the staffing and the solutions, all of your expertise, what are some things that you think people maybe missing that you can kind of help them see here and
Well,
in a short time?
I think to me, hustle culture implies like a get rich quick scheme, right? It's not going to be crypto is not going to get you rich. Believe me, I like crypto as much as anybody else, and I like to invest in all those other sorts of things. But I think that you're good. What I don't want people to do is to sacrifice let me pivot back. If I'm talking to a young person, I don't
Mhm.
think I don't want you to hustle, but what I want you to do is I want you to collect experiences. Because
Mm.
if you grow up and you're exposed to more things, you have more experiences, that creates a better life for you. Your focus shouldn't be on having I mean, I worked 5 jobs when I was in summer. I put myself through college. I worked the graveyard shift at 7-Eleven. I blew garbage in the corners. I've worked in the call center. I know that life, and I know what it
Mhm.
takes to sacrifice and to work 24 hours a day. I did that literally last year at college. I worked 24 hours a day. Um, but don't do that at the expense of having an experience and being a well-rounded person. So I think because eventually that stuff makes you one-dimensional. So
Mm.
hustle culture should be balanced with a curiosity to pursue experiences as opposed to just money. And
Ooh, that is so good.
that's the thing. I think that if you recognize that money is just an energetic resource that allows you to collect experiences, that's going to yield a better freaking life, man, than just the fact that uh, you know, you're doing all this other stuff for some nebulous reason. Money gives you security. Money provides a roof over your head. Don't get me wrong. I like it. I want more of it, just like anybody else. But what's more important to me is character. And what sort of a person am I becoming? And do I like the guy I am more than I do like that guy last year? And so
Right.
I don't want, and I have 3 kids. I wouldn't want my kids to think that it's more important than they hustle than that they're good people.
Yes. I mean, that's a great place to jump to our three whats.
All right.
Because you're kind of answering them already. Uh, but I'll do it anyway.
Do it
Okay.
anyway. I'll find
Unpop-
it. You're going to force me to be
unpopular
creative.
opinion.
I'll find a new answer.
What's your unpopular opinion? I don't know if it's
Oh,
the same thing that you shared already, but
I think I think
you
I think
teased it
that
here.
well, I think that I think there's an extension of that. Um, I don't know if this is unpopular or popular, but I'll tell you what. No one gives a shit what college you went to. Um,
Oh, can you say that one more time, please?
no one gives a shit what college you went to,
Thank you.
unless you're doing a couple of very different careers, like you're going to medical school or you want to be a lawyer, where that's going to make a difference. No one's going to give two shit what college you went to. And also, maybe not so popular. No one is going to give a rip about your grades in college either. But what it demonstrates is an ability to be responsible, an ability to follow things
Yep.
through, an ability to be that. But you know what? You can get that other ways, and you can get that through internships. You can get that through working. You can get those experiences by teaching yourself something online. You can get those experiences by starting a business. Um, I, for the vast portion of people, I'm no longer sure that college is worth it. Now, I don't. I mean, I
Ooh.
definitely think education is worth it, but education is not college. Um, so, and looking at how employment expenses are and how expensive it is to go to school, um, I'm not
Mm,
convinced that it matters that much anymore. Now, granted, I don't want people to a high school student go, look, I don't need to go to school. I definitely think you need to be around an individual, and I definitely think that it's important to pursue knowledge. And saying that college in many ways is not, it doesn't matter, doesn't mean that I'm not saying don't be educated. I'm just simply saying that expecting an outcome and doing it for the wrong reasons um, just doesn't hold out. So people who don't feel college for them, I encourage them to say be comfortable with that. Um,
mhm.
because if I were, like, I tell you what, if I was 18, I don't know if I'd learn a trade maybe, and I'd learn a trade, or I, I tell people this all the time. One of the more successful people that I went to high school with, guy Gary Bauer, uh, started his own limousine company, and now he runs a transportation empire. Right out of high school,
Wow.
and so, and now, with the rise of artificial intelligence, the things that we as a society value, base knowledge, is accessible on my phone, but also
Yep.
artificial. I can write questions, so knowledge is no relevant. How you use it, and chat, like a chat. What's it is
Chat
prompt
GPT.
engineer. Prompt engineer right now. You know that job doesn't exist. You're not going to learn that anywhere. They're making like $325,000 a year. So 20 years ago, you can't point to a single job that had anything to do with the internet. And so the wave of knowledge is moving so fast. I'm not convinced that colleges are being able to keep up with that speed.
Mm. I would definitely encourage kids, and I do, to research other avenues.
Absolutely.
College is not the end all be all. And I also tell them, if somebody else, not your parents, not your family, if that college is paying for you to come, then definitely
Oh,
go. Take their
absolutely.
money.
No question.
Go.
No question. But
Yeah.
if you're going to
So
go into $250,000 of debt,
don't do it.
don't do it.
Don't
Don't
do
do it.
it. And it's
Don't do
that
it.
time of year.
Yeah.
AP testing's going on. Kids are getting, well, a lot of them have gotten acceptance letters already, but senior year is coming to a close for a lot of kids. It's May.
Yep.
And a lot of people are stressed out. Either they got into a college or they didn't get into a college, or they don't know what they want to do after high school
Yeah.
and they don't want to go to college. There's all of this pressure on these teenagers, most of it coming from the parents, because they are thinking of it like it's 1995 still,
Yeah.
when times have totally changed. Because, like you said, a lot of places you don't have to have a college degree, but you can go and get the experiences. You can go and get the knowledge to be able to do the job competently. And we talked about this a lot before we started the show. Are you socially intelligent?
Yeah.
Right? Because I mean, you have a business yourself, and you want to hire people that can work with other people. And we
100%.
talked about character. I mean, we
Yeah,
could go on and on about that. Yeah,
well,
for
I
sure.
think it's one thing I think is that another thing to point out is that if people don't get into their college right away, don't your dream college or whatever, junior college, there's tons of resources you can do and you can follow to get that. And at the end of the day, um, if you graduate from college X but you started your first 2 years at junior college, no one's
Nobody
going to know
cares.
that. It doesn't say if I went to UC, if I went to Santa Rosa Junior College instead of starting my 4 years at 5 years actually at UC San Diego, my degree would still say UC San Diego, and they wouldn't even. So don't feel like you have to follow anybody else's narrative or path. And that's the thing that I think I always like to also impress upon people is, look, I was an actor for 6 years. I spent 6 years pursuing this other dream, and I don't regret it. I don't regret it at all. And if I didn't do that, I wouldn't be here. And if I took that first job, I wouldn't be here in Southern California. I wouldn't know the people I know. I wouldn't have had the
Mm.
incredible experience that I've been privy to. And so you don't know where your future is going to come from. And the more you try and think you're going to fit that mold, the more disappointed you're going to be, because the universe is a funny way of, bending your straight lines. And you just have to be able to learn how to deal with that. I like that line.
Okay,
I'm gonna say the
we spent
universe.
a
That's a
long
good, that's a
time
good line. I like that line.
bending your straight lines.
Yeah, the universe has a way of
Okay,
bending your straight lines.
second what? Man, this is good. You can go however long or however short you want in it. If you weren't in field that you're in now with Defiant and the consulting, what would you be doing? Acting, maybe?
Hmm. I thought about this a lot, and when you get older, you start to think about, what do you want to do with your life, and if I didn't have a professional career, I mean, I love what I'm doing now, and I love the companies I'm working with now because it allows me to be creative. And if you look at my calendar, I literally just am on the phone all day talking to people, and I love talking to people, and I love connecting with people. I have 15, 16 calls a
Mm,
day, and they're just like this.
dang.
And so I do love it. But if I wasn't doing that, what would I do? Um, I think I would probably run a small business that had open mic night, like a coffee shop with open mic night, and
I'm
that
in.
would allow you bands, and I'd be in probably some place with a lot of trees, because I like trees, and have an open mic that would allow people to come in and perform and encourage that. Probably be like a concert promoter. That sounds like a lot of fun to me. That sounds like.
Man, well, hey, life's not over, man. That
Oh,
that
I
dream,
know.
that
I'm
may
not.
be
I'm
the
just.
next thing.
If there's anybody in the universe who knows they can reinvent themselves from time to time, it's me. So I'm not afraid of it.
Ah,
I got 60
man,
years
you're the
left as
man.
I see it, so I got plenty of time.
Okay, last what? And I mean, you've done this more times over, and so I think you could probably come up with something else. But what advice would you give to someone in high school, young person, that person we're talking about, graduating? What would you say to that person?
Ooh, well, I would I have God, I have a ton of things. I think the biggest thing would be to recognize that pursue experiences aggressively, see the world, travel, definitely travel. Travel is less expensive than you think it is. Um, uh, um, take long road trips. And the thing that I think would really impart upon them is there's no rush. Take your time. There is no rush. If you take a year off to travel to Europe, or you take a year off to go stay with your aunt in Atlanta because you want to get out of your situation, which I highly recommend, do it, because the universe doesn't give a crap about it. No one's going to know 2 years, 3 years, 4 years later that you took a gap year. No one's going to know. It doesn't matter. But those experiences are going to shape who you are. And someday, your opportunity to pursue experiences and take risks will be gone. You'll have a job and a mortgage, and you go, I wish I would have gone with my friends as such and such. I have a really good friend of mine who we went on a road trip once. I used to like to take road trips when I was in high school, or after high school. Take long road trips and just drive. And he didn't go because he wanted to stay home with his girlfriend. To this day, he's in his 50s. He says he regrets it. To this day.
Wow.
He'll say, I regret not going on that trip with you guys. So those are the things I think, is there's no rush, travel, and don't be afraid to take risks. Because you got plenty of room to fail. And failure is the best thing that could ever happen to you. And that's it. Pursue failure. Pursue it aggressively. Because everybody who's been successful has failed a ton. And the more failures you have, the more likely you are going to be successful. Because the bigger the failure, the bigger the swings you're going to take it, the bigger at bats. You want to take those risks as much as you can when you're young, because the most expensive thing in the world is regret. So recognize that someday you regret stuff, and make it your mission when you're young to regret as little as possible.
That's so good. That may be going on the front of this episode. I got to put my little clip. That's good. Okay, Bryan, where can people find you? Where can they connect? How can they get on one of these 15 phone calls?
You can find me at my website, defiantsolutions.com, or you can reach out to our main line, which is at admin@defiantsolutions.com. And you can also find me at LinkedIn, Bryan Pena at Defiant Solutions on LinkedIn. Always welcome to chat with people. Thank you so much for this time. This was so much fun, Tony. I appreciate it.
Man, thank you, Bryan, for coming on. Like I was telling you before, like I had no idea how this was going to go, but you had that great smile that reassured me. And I think we gave with our conversation of a lot of value for people to be able to, I don't know, just get some direction and kind of feel like they're okay, even if things aren't going perfectly. So make sure you all go check out Bryan. Make sure you go to his website, check out what he's doing. He's got an open mic on Saturday. If you're out in LA.
Absolutely.
Make sure you guys go share, rate, review wherever you listen to podcasts. Follow me on IG and TikTok at The Living Numbers Podcast, and subscribe on Apple and Spotify for the behind the scenes stuff. I know that me and Bryan are going to have some great words once the camera stops rolling here. And I will see you all in the next ramble.
Thank you. That was fun.